Pete Nader, Salsa Legends and Masters Academy. I'm in Kyiv, Ukraine. I've always been saying Kiev, but they call it Kyiv here, so. I'm in Kyiv, Ukraine, and I am with Ilya Yeresko, the leader of the #1 salsa band in Ukraine. Ilya, thank you for taking the time to interview with me so that the people,
thank you, Pete.
the followers of Salsa Legends and Masters Academy can learn a little more about you. I'd like to take this opportunity to again say thank you to you and Carolina Potaki for inviting me here to Ukraine to participate in the recording of your CD. I've had a great time. I would love to come back here sometime, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's been really wonderful. Ilya, you were born in Ukraine, right?
That's right, Pete. Can I first say that I'm very honored, first of all, to be here in the same room with you. And such a legendary trumpet player and just a musician that really impressed us all here in Ukraine and impressed us way before I knew you in person. And it's such a great opportunity to record with you. It's very unique and unusual for all of us. And well, hopefully, everybody in Ukraine will know you, too, and you can come back to me. That would be great.
I would love that. I really would. Thank you for those kind words. Ilya, how did you get involved with salsa? How did that happen?
I started playing jazz when I was 18, 17, and then played many bands. I had some bands of my own, and then we had a gig with that band called Band 44, played in Club 44. So we had gigs every Sunday. We did jazz and then jam session, and the place was getting kind of less people. Each week was less people. I always loved Latin music, so we decided to play something like Latin jazz that we called salsa.
Okay.
Because nobody knew what salsa is back in 2005 in Ukraine. Was no salsa music. There was some dancers, yeah, but no music, no musicians that played Latin jazz or anything like that. So we called it salsa. We played tunes like Son de la Loma, Bilongo, the Cuban stuff, and maybe stuff like Rancancan, instrumental. And so we started playing that. I loved, before I didn't know about salsa, and then I learned about cachao. I think it was my first influence, or like actually the music that I heard, Latin music that I heard, like really in cloud, it was cachao cities.
So, yeah, you kind of answered my next question. Was going to be what were some of the bands or the music that you had heard before. You said you liked Latin music, so was it just stuff that you didn't know who it was, you just kind of liked it, and then you started learning about?
Kind of. I was like, I loved Chick Corea. That was my first love in jazz, right? And then I sort of like heard that word salsa, and I didn't know what it is. And some guys here, like it was a guy that studied in Berkeley College in Israel, and he's like, "There's salsa." I played salsa. I'm like, "Oh, this is a great word, salsa. But what is salsa?" I started explaining what salsa is, and then I had a book, and I looked at the rhythms and different stuff. And there was a book by Rebecca Mauleon, and she had that book about piano and ensemble, salsa piano ensemble. And the guy that handed me the book, he said, "You can learn about the rhythms, salsa rhythms, but you're a piano player, so you have to go to page 200 because the beginning is just percussion and clave, that's how you don't need that. So you start with montunos." And I opened the book and it says, to play piano you have to start with clave and congas. So I had to start learning some rhythms.
Oh, that explains it.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is your arrangements, which we just recorded, are. I was surprised how knowledgeable you are about clave. A lot of people don't understand that in order, there's like certain guidelines that should be followed in salsa composition, arranging, and the clave is like the heart of it. And not everybody understands the concept. And when I heard you arranging, I was like, this guy knows clave. I was very impressed. So
Thank you.
harmonically, your arranging is top notch, and the fact that you know what you're doing with the clave, again, was surprising and very impressive. And the other thing that I like about your writing for this particular CD is that you have a good variety of rhythms and tempos and styles. So it's not, you know, some bands, they sound the same every song, and it's not the case with you. And it's all interesting, it's all different, it's all, I'd say pretty unique, you know, and especially the fact that it's coming from here, Ukraine.
Right.
So I congratulate you on some fine writing. Like
Thank you, sir.
Like I said, I'm a fan now. So tell me a little bit about the history of Dislocados, or maybe there's something before. Yeah, there's probably before you started learning. You got the book.
Yeah.
What else happened?
Got the book. I had no salsa CD. Well, there was no YouTube then. There was no like stuff. No, I guess it was no YouTube, but it was some CDs maybe. But no musicians were interested in salsa before ever in my country, in Ukraine. So nobody played that music. Nobody knew anything. So I didn't have a chance to get CDs. So I just had the book. But that book I mentioned. And then some bailador, some dancer gave me a CD. Mostly it was like horrible music and was maybe one Oscar de Leon tune, right? And and I started listening. I had my first band maybe like 11 years ago. We rehearsed for 6 months and we had one gig. And it was not, I mean, everybody kind of, except me, didn't like it. In the band didn't like the experience. So then in 1 year, like after 1 year, I had that band that I mentioned that played every Sunday. We turned into a Latin jazz band, and then a couple of months ago, we had a Cuban guy that joined us to sing the same instrumental style.
A couple of months after.
After. And my English is just like that.
It's okay.
And then he joined us. We started singing a bunch of Cuban traditional stuff. And then I had a Puerto Rican guy that lived here in Ukraine. He worked for some project as a businessman or something, I don't know. And Juan Carlos. And he introduced me to Puerto Rican music and to New York salsa and such stuff like Funny Old Stars. And then Eddie Palmieri, and then Puerto Rican music, including Bombay Plana, including Mon Rivera, stuff like that. It's Mon Rivera, I love it very much. And and I turned it into like our music, I guess, started to sound a little more. Well, I can't say New York, but you know what I mean. It's like from Cuban approaches to another approach. It's a very different thing. So we started playing that. And then they both kind of left, and we had Karolina Patowski and Lesa Zdorovetska, who was another singer. Karolina is from Canada, and Lesa is Ukrainian. They started singing songs, and Karolina was kind of encouraging us to do our original music. So she started writing some Spanish lyrics. She knows Spanish good, so she started writing lyrics, and I started composing music to her lyrics, right? And we recorded our first CD. 2009, it was his first CD called La Salida. I can see it right here, La Salida, first CD, and we were learning how to play salsa and recording the CD at the same time, like song by song, stuff like that. We didn't have any like teachers, master classes. We haven't seen any salsa band live.
Really?
When we finished recording the CD, we never heard salsa live, right? So funny. And then the first Latin band kind of I heard was Orquesta Aragon.
That's a good first band to hear.
Yeah. But that was after we recorded the CD, stuff like that, and we played with great performers, great musicians like Huey Dunbar. Then I had a chance to invite Huey was again sorry the accent.
It's okay. Just want to clarify that so
Yeah.
people know who you're talking about.
Yeah, from DLG. It was a great experience in Stockholm. We played a show of Dislocados, our music. Then next night we performed with his music was he's amazing
Did you
singer.
play DLG tunes or his stuff after DLG?
I think it was mostly DLG stuff like Juliana and other tunes. But I think it was mostly DLG, maybe some of his tunes. I mean, it's not it's not the direction we always dream
Right,
about, but
right,
it's
right.
great.
It's a
His
great
voice-
opportunity, yeah.
Exactly, and his voice is amazing. It's like
I played with DLG for a couple of months.
it's great.
Go ahead. Let me go back a minute
Okay.
because I didn't ask it and I don't think you actually mentioned when did it become Dislocados?
First name was Kiev Salsa Kings, and it wasn't my idea. And me and Carolina, kind of didn't like that name because it's kind of what we wanted to do, what she wanted to do, and then I followed kind of this idea. We didn't want to sound like in any kind of way to sound like a local band that plays Latin music somewhere in a club, right? And for us, Kiev Salsa Kings, it was kind of that thing. So we wanted to go international somehow, maybe in the future, stuff like that. So then she had a Spanish friend, and she said she kind of came up with that name, Dislocados, a Spanish friend of hers, of Carolina's, and she said Dislocados because you kind of play that music, Cuban. She called it Cuban music, like salsa, but you're not from there, and you're not from Caribbean or something like that. So you kind of dislocado, like from not located where you're supposed to be, kind of, like
Okay.
right? And then also Dislocados like crazy, kind of like some craziness in that word. Because
I wondered about that.
Yeah.
It's an unusual name. It's cool though. It's unique. And now that you've explained it, it's cool. I like it.
thank you. So we became Dislocados. We kind of forgot all the stuff we have done for 1 year, and we started a new band with our original stuff, and then we started recording CDs, and that was Dislocados, the beginning of Dislocados, new concept. I
So-
guess.
Carolina is co-leader with you. Is it that fair to say?
Well,
Or
kind of.
she's just. I don't mean to use the word just, but she is one of the founding members since it became Dislocados.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And she played an important role because she composed a lot of the lyrics for the new tunes.
Most of them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she kind of a visionary for that direction, the international direction, because she always cared about that. She wanted scholars to be open to the world, because it's very important. Because we live in Ukraine. Ukraine's country pretty much close to most of the world because of visas and stuff. You have to make a huge effort to get out of country just to travel. And then not many people know about Ukraine. It's still consider us a part of Russia and Soviet Union.
Yeah, I know.
So it's very important for us to identify us as a Ukrainian band, like a band that can play music. And always, you don't have that experience, but yours experience. But my experience, each time you play salsa music or Latin music, there's a guy or somebody commenting that you can't play this music. You're not supposed to do that because you're not letting.
Mm.
And as we said, no. Fortunately, I may disappoint you, and this is music we do, and this is our music. We're recording this music, we're composing that, and we're performing, giving it to the people. It's our music, born here.
You're definitely proving that, yeah, you can do it, and hopefully you guys will be an inspiration to musicians in other countries that they can see that,
Or can I tell you, not a story, but an example? Well, there was Carolina's idea. We had this salsa cover for Billie Jean, Michael Jackson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1 year after we released that, I found on YouTube a Mexican band transcribed all the parts, crazy arrangement I did,
Really?
and they did a show with dancers to my music.
Wow.
Mexican, it's
That's great.
strange.
That's great. So, tell me, I mean, you guys started doing some gigs out of Kiev. Where did you play? I mean, you mentioned Huey Dunbar.
Yeah, we did it in Stockholm. Yeah.
Where else have you traveled? Who else have you invited to participate with the band?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know the answer, but you should mention it.
Sure, sure. So the first kind of Jimmy Bosch was the first. Was one of the first salsa musicians I ever heard. He was in that Cachao CD, Cuba Linda, he plays trombone, right?
Right.
And then I had a CD with, I think it was Salsa in Puerto Rico, like compilation CD, and it was his tune. It was like Palmieri, and it was Conjunto Libre, and all that. It's like I could hear the same trombone, right? And then I learned who Jimmy Bosch was, so I always dreamt of like seeing him live somehow. And then we had this idea of making a CD release concert, and we came up with this idea to invite Jimmy Bosch to play with us here in Ukraine, in Kiev.
Is that your first CD or your second?
The first CD, it was
released
in 2010. It was when we invited Jimmy, and we didn't know anything about like people in New York in terms of like how they work, how it works, and we just wrote him. I think it was in MySpace, if you remember that
Yes.
beautiful thing we had.
Yeah.
So we wrote to him, and he's very business. He's a great business person, So he responded right away that he would be allowed to come, and we worked a couple of things out, and he was the first New York, or let's say the first salsa musician that performed in Ukraine ever, an international artist. He came here. It was crazy cold, and we had this show, and it influenced us in many ways in terms of the performance, because we never heard like real salsa band. Like we heard Orquesta Aragon, but it's a little different, right? And then his approach to perform, to deliver salsa, to the audience, and all the messages he had. Being a great fan of his music, so he was like he called himself, the salsa ambassador, and he is. So he kind of had that here, and then we played with him a couple of times in Russia and in Warsaw, Poland, and it was a great show. Once, a little more than a month ago, we participated in this Rabat salsa meeting in Morocco.
So this was a series of gigs in one period of time, or you're talking about multiple trips?
Multiple, yes. It was like I had some friends in Russia, and they asked who they can bring with us, and they brought Jimmy to Krasnoyarsk, Siberia Salsa Festival, I think that was the name, and it was great fun. And we played there next year with Jimmy Bosch and Germán Olivera. And then Jimmy came back here, we played another gig here, and then he invites us because he's a very generous and very great. I hope he's a great friend of Dislocados, and whenever he needs a band to back him up somewhere, he may suggest Dislocados too. So that happened last year when we went to Warsaw to play with on the Warsaw Salsa Festival. It was great experience. A lot of dancers, like 1,000 or 2,000 people dancing. And then we played in Morocco this year in May. That was just different because I never been to Africa. Jimmy says he never been to Africa. I don't know. And
that's surprising.
He said so, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But that was so crazy. It was different continent, different.
Yeah. Was that his gig, or was that
Yes.
a gig that he got?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Morocco was a very interesting place. I went with Conjunto Clásico once. played for the Prince in a party at his residence. I forget how many years ago, but it was cool. We had a good time. And there's a lot of new followers from Morocco on my Salsa Legends and Masters page.
Mm-hmm. Very
surprising. It's like almost every day I get a new request or two, or like, for people to become either members of the group or just liking the Salsa Legends and Masters Academy page. So there's some people out there in Morocco that are salseros, which is cool. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. So you did the gig with Jimmy Bosch in Morocco.
Yeah, I just wanted also to mention that Morocco is such an unusual place, maybe for salsa, I don't know, but really something different.
Mm-hmm.
People are great, very open, and loved salsa apparently. Dance salsa, yes, and then they loved the music we played, and the Jimmy's music, not only Jimmy, but mostly Jimmy. They were singing along, to Jimmy's music in Morocco, singing demonios, with him.
Really?
One time, one point, I think Jimmy forgot his money or something like that, and then the guys were like, "This is your money. You're supposed to play this."
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about your second CD and how people here in Ukraine or in any other place are reacting to the band as it's developing and building popularity.
Well, first CD was more like, because I'm a musician, I didn't know much about dancing and salsa community, so first CD was very advanced in terms of rhythms and complicated things that an arranger can put into music. The most I could do, I had in the first CD. We had in the first CD, and then the more we played in front of salseros and for salseros, for the dancers, for great dancers, the more kind of I understood about this community, the music, that salsa, it's unusual because I had to learn how salsa is not only music.
It's dance too.
It's dance too. Yes, because some dancers come to the point when they have to learn that salsa is not dance only; it's music too.
Mm-hmm.
And then some salsera from here, she wrote to me, "What's the name of the music that you play for salsa dancing?" I said, the name of this music is salsa because it's music and dance. So the second CD called Pasaporte Universal. Pasaporte Universal, is it my first name? I don't remember. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure, but I thought you were checking with the Spanish, and that's correct.
Pasaporte Universal. So Pasaporte Universal, yes. So I forgot the name of my CD anyway. So that CD had, from the comments that we had from salseros, from people from here and other places, it's more danceable. We recorded a CD, and it's more danceable and a lot of stuff also, but less complicated. So the dancer could enjoy dancing. We had Billie Jean cover on that on that CD. We had Jimmy Bosch playing solo for Como Tu. That's the song that he plays, Como Tu. Carolina wrote lyrics about our first experience with Jimmy, and we wrote a song kind of referring to Jimmy Bosch.
That's
and
cool.
Then he played solo, and then that song, with that song we won that award called International Music Awards.
Really?
Independent Music Awards.
Very
Ever
cool.
heard that?
I have. Yeah.
I think Lion Giants of Jazz once won that, a year or 2 years before.
I'll have to check. Could be. Yeah.
So so we won as a best Latin track, and it was great for us, and thank you for that, for Independent Music Awards people, and for the fans, because the other part of that award is also it's also the voting, the Vox Populi thing, but the important thing that Ukrainians can beat some Mexicans, or great Mexicans, some Mexicans and Colombian bands that were participating too, and they were there. So it's great. I feel very proud.
So, I have not had the pleasure of hearing either your first or your second CD, so I couldn't compare what we just recorded now. But I find the new stuff to be pretty, how can I define it? It's not simple to play, and it's complex. Some of it is complex listening, and I mean that in a great way. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of arrangements that I compare to some of the best writing I've ever heard. I mean, there's stuff there that reminds me of Palmieri's big band stuff, the harmonies, the rhythms, the whole concept, the rumba. How different is the second CD to the third CD? Does it go? Is it more complex to listen to?
Third CD, I think is going to be more. It's going to be easier for dancers, both dancers and listeners. I understand that it is hard to play and hard to listen to, but second CD was harder, and the first CD is just much harder.
I don't mean hard to listen to. I just mean it's
Hard to.
it's complex music. It's not dunky 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 dun. You know, real simple. It's involved, and I mean that in a good way. I enjoy listening to it, and I think people will also. But one of the things challenges that we face sometimes is keeping the attention of the listener or a dancer. Dancers, a lot of times, are not really paying attention to what it is we're playing. It's kind of sad that that's the case sometimes, but it is the case. So I was just wondering how the second compared to the third, because I haven't heard the second or the first.
Or the third.
Well, I've recorded some of the third, and I haven't heard the final mix, but
nobody heard it. I heard yesterday. I heard. You know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but I heard the non-mixed, but the whole track with the voice, the vocals. I heard almost everything, and it sounds even better than I thought it would sound.
Yeah.
It's just much better than I thought.
I'm excited to hear it. What I heard with the trumpets and trombones, I was like, wow, that sounds good. And it was still missing some saxes. So everything's done. It's all done.
We need like a couple of tiny things, but otherwise on Saturday we start mixing, and on Monday it's going to be over. So soon, it's like in 1 week, we're going to have the CD mixed and mastered. Yeah.
Very cool. And when will the CD be released?
I think it will be released in September or something like that. August, September. We still don't have a name for the CD, so I can't really promote the CD. It's just a third CD of Dislocados.
Can I suggest Pete Nader Came to Ukraine as the title of your CD?
It's a nice title to consider, but I have to check with Carolina. She's always.
I don't think that would work. I was just kidding.
Can we call it just Pete Nader?
You need to give some more detail, otherwise.
Okay.
But it was a lot of fun, and
thank you. Same here.
Talk about where you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years. The band yourself.
Wow, that's. I know I have to answer this question, but it's such a hard and difficult question, but musically, I want us to be better and like the best band in the world. I know it sounds very crazy. I understand the responsibility of saying that to the fans, but yeah, I think that every band wants to do that, right? In the history of music, they want to be the best band in the world. So
they should aspire to be the best. I think it's a good goal to have in one's mind, is to be the best. Okay, continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and so that part, and then I want to have more connection to the salsa audience, the salsa people, and I want salsa to be still around, because a lot of stuff is going on with dancers, and the new dances are coming into the
Yeah,
community.
don't mention the
I
new dances.
I want.
Because we're all about salsa. That's
We want salsa, exactly. So that's why I want salseros to like salsa, you know, because it's very important. Salsa is the greatest music in the world, and it's the greatest danceable music in the world. And it has jazz, and it has all the rhythms, the best rhythms, or like the most complicated and sophisticated and fun to dance to rhythms, right? And harmonies and melodies and everything, and all the concept. You can do anything you want to salsa. You can do any kind of lyrics or any kind of concept. Salsa music, right? So I want salseros to still enjoy salsa, and I see me playing in front of salseros still, you know, in 5 years, and in front of international audience too, because I want Dislocados wants to be more exposed to the world. So don't forget Dislocados. Don't forget to invite Dislocados.
I also hope that, I mean, playing for dancers is great too, but I hope you get more opportunities to play in front of seated audiences. In other words, maybe like in performing arts centers and universities, because that's also a nice feeling to be appreciated from beginning to end for the music, as opposed to, you know, again, it's great when people are dancing, but it's also amazing that people sit down and listen to the first beat to the last beat. I remember when I was with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, a lot of times we played at performing arts centers and universities, and it wasn't in a dance setting. And
can I just say that? Yeah, same thing. I think salsa is one of the greatest music, not only danceable music, but just musically. It deserves bigger attention. I think in the world and in my country, Ukraine too. I would love to do it like salsa and Philharmonic, you know, something like that. You know, of course. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I was just quickly going to say that it was cool to sometimes be in situations where let's say performing arts center. There's people who are season ticket holders, and they just go and they generally don't really know the history of every performance they're going to see. And a lot of times there were people in the audiences in other countries, or even in the United States, in places like Kentucky, where salsa is not really, people don't know much about it. They would see the name Spanish Harlem Orchestra, and because of the orchestra and they didn't know the history, they kind of think that it would be classical music.
Oh, right.
And in the first tune or two, and we start playing, they were like scratching their head, like, "What is this?" And they didn't understand Spanish, but by the end of the concert, they're like going like that, and they're jumping and cheering and buying the T-shirts and the CDs. So I wish you guys that kind of situation where you get to play in front of audiences that are appreciating your music, because it's great writing. As a matter of fact, any band leaders out there, I highly recommend you consider Ilya as an arranger for your upcoming projects, because he's a great arranger. He really is. And hopefully you'll hear it. Go out and buy the CD if you're watching this after September of 2015. Check it out, look it up. And if people wanted to reach you for arrangements or even to hire you, how can people find you?
I think the easiest is Facebook these days, right? I'm always on Facebook, and I'm not, as Pete mentioned, I'm not only doing complicated arrangements, but you said there is a variety, so I can do simple stuff. I do jazz big band, yes, I don't know. So I'm here for you.
Okay, great.
Facebook.
Right. Yeah. I consider you a friend now. You know, you picked me up at the airport. I mean, we were in touch before. Well, real quick, we had met a couple of times in Russia, in St. Petersburg, when I went to perform the first time with Spanish Harlem Orchestra, second time with Mambo Legends Orchestra. You made the trip from Ukraine to St. Petersburg on both cases, not to see me specifically, but to see
the second time to see you.
Okay. To see those great bands that I was honored, privileged to be a member of, and those great concerts. And they're all available on YouTube to watch. Great quality recordings, but that's how we met.
I played once.
You
Excuse
did.
me for.
There's a video of
I
you
played
playing.
once.
There's a
tune. Yeah.
video of you playing piano solo.
This is great. I was so nervous.
Mambo Legends Orchestra
Yes, sir.
with Ilya Yeresko.
Big
So, thank you for your hospitality, for showing me around, for babysitting me for 7 days. I've had a blast, and I hope to come back. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. It was
And-
amazing and incomparable experience for us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ilya Yeresko, Dislocados, Kyiv, Ukraine. Look for the new CD, which they haven't decided the title yet. They're considering Pete Nader, but it's probably
Just
not.
eat.
It's not. It's probably not going to be that.